Are you thinking of buying a house in 2022? Make sure to watch this video to the very end. I've got 6 key points on things you need to be aware of if you're thinking of buying a house. So let's hop right into the list. First and foremost, if you're thinking about buying a house, the one thing I would recommend you doing is tuning out the media and tuning out your friends, family, coworkers, anybody else that isn't in the business that wants to give you advice. And the reason is there's so much negativity out there right now. If you're thinking about buying, I could almost guarantee you that your friends, family, and coworkers will probably talk you out of buying a house, unless, of course, they've recently purchased a home themselves. And if you pay attention to the media, they're changing their story every single day about the housing market. It's getting better, it's getting worse. And if you pay attention to that stuff, you will find more negativity and you will talk yourself out of purchasing. I've talked to a number of clients recently that wanted to purchase several years ago, but because they opened up their goals to their friends and family, they were actually talked out of buying a house. So I'd hate to have that happen to you because there's so many opportunities that I am seeing today for a lot of our clients. And I'm not saying this to convince you to buy. You guys should know that by now. I'm giving you the facts and the real stories of conversations that I'm having with clients, and people are winning in this market. And if this is the first time you're checking out my channel, my name is Seanu Uyehara. I'm a branch manager with Loan Depot, helping you finance your homes all across America and simplifying home ownership. You can hit the description below for links to more information on how to get your mortgage right. And let's get back into the video. Now, as you talk about the media, this actually reminds me of the crash back in 2008. And for some of you that have been watching my channel for a while, you know that I bought my first house during that time frame. Again, if you think about the media and what they were talking about back then, everything was negative. Las Vegas was the foreclosure capital. If it wasn't us, it was California or Florida. You know, there were so many bankruptcies that were taking place, divorces, and the market was going to, you know what? I could have easily fed into that and didn't buy. But I bought my house. I still own it to this day. It's got a ton of equity and it's worth the purchase. So if you're thinking of buying, number one thing you got to do today, tune everybody out and stay focused on your game plan. Don't let someone talk you out of what your goal is. And the second thing you need to do once you have that goal is get qualified. Now more than ever, I stand firm on this. You have to get approved and understand where you stand in the buying process. The last couple of years, interest rates were super low. Lenders were just getting people out there to shop. They weren't verifying anything because when rates were in the 2s and 3s, honestly, if you were a loan officer, you could make mistakes on your pre-approval and you could probably figure out a way to get someone qualified and still close on the house. But with interest rates where they are today, you have no room for error. In fact, if you made a mistake and let's say rates go up during the week, that buyer could have went from being qualified to not qualified. So you want to make sure as a first-time home buyer that your loan officer is crossing the T's and dotting the I's. Make sure that you provide them all the necessary paperwork in order for them to determine whether or not you can or cannot purchase a home. Don't skip out on any shortcuts. This is not the market to do it in. If you do so, you could literally cost yourself thousands of dollars in lost earnest money. And most importantly, you don't want to waste your own time. So just make sure that you get qualified and you do it properly up front. Now, with the way that the market has completely shifted over the last couple of months, you need to understand your own budget. I haven't talked about this a lot in previous videos, but I think for a lot of the clients that I have been seeing purchase recently, I've noticed one thing in common. A lot of them have had a budget and they've stuck to their numbers. This is actually something that I was forced to look at over the last several months with my own business because we've been so busy. I haven't had time to look at so many other things. But now that things have shifted, I've had to look at what costs could I potentially cut? Do I actually need to pay for this other service, or could I do it in-house or do it myself? So I think if you are looking to buy, face those numbers, create your budget. Where are you spending your money? Look at your credit cards. Are you eating out too often? Can you get rid of maybe a few streaming services, or maybe you're spending too much money at Starbucks or any other places, or traveling? Maybe you need to pick up a side hustle to make some extra cash, because I know it is difficult to cut back on expenses. Trust me, I get it. I eat out all the time, and I try to get me and my girlfriend to be more disciplined, go to the grocery store, but sometimes with my schedule, it's just too hard to get to the store and cook. So for me, eating out or having a meal plan is a lot more of a convenience for me, but it does come at a price. So I think if you're in a position where buying a house is a goal, start writing down those numbers. And this is honestly where it's super important to check with a lender up front, right? Whether you call me or you call a lender that you know, call them in advance. If the goal is to buy a house by, let's say, the end of 2023, figure out what you need to do today to be successful for that purchase. You might need to save maybe an extra $5,000, maybe $10,000 in order to purchase your home. Maybe you need to pay off some of your debt. Maybe you need to get your credit score up. Give yourself ample time to make these necessary changes so you can be successful. Do not wait till the last minute unless you've bought homes before, you know exactly how the process works, and you know what it takes to close on a house. If that's you, by all means, you can wait till the last minute. But for most of you, this is your first time buying. You want to make sure your ducks in a row, and you want to make sure that your credit is where it needs to be. You want to make sure that you have enough income, especially if you're self-employed. You're not writing off a ton of your income every month. And you also want to look at your debt. What sort of debt is still reporting on your credit report that maybe you can eliminate? Or maybe you keep things the way they are, and then you're just focusing on saving more money, so that way you have an extra $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 in the bank. So when it comes to purchase, you got the funds, and it's going to be an easy transaction for you. These are some of the basic things that many home buyers skip out on simply because, one, they don't want to go talk to a lender, which I get. I know sometimes when you speak to a loan officer, the conversation can be a little intrusive because we're asking for your credit. We're asking you for your tax returns and some of the stuff that you probably don't even share with your own family. However, you have to look at a loan officer's job as like a doctor. If you're sick, the doctor has to check you out in order to figure out what's wrong with you. That's the exact same that we're doing, except for housing. So when you come in, I have to know what your credit score is. I have to know what your income is, what your debt looks like. There's no judgment whatsoever. It's simply, how do we get you from being a renter to a homeowner? And we know what boxes we need to check, and we know what it's going to take for you to get there. And our number one goal is to make sure we get you there as most efficiently as possible. So don't hesitate to reach out to a lender. And if you're finding this video helpful so far, make sure to hit that subscribe button so that way it helps me push out more content to the rest of the universe to help them understand how simple it is to purchase a home. Now back to the video. My next tip is do not be afraid. I know with the economy and the way things are moving right now, there's every opportunity to be afraid to purchase, to invest. The stock market goes up one day, the next day it's down. Everything has its share of uncertainty right now. But don't let that be a reason that you get scared to not purchase. If you can qualify to purchase a home today and you're not stretching yourself as far as your monthly mortgage payment and your current living style, I think it's a really good time to look at purchasing, simply because when you look at where the market was over the last couple of years, you as a buyer, you didn't have a leg to stand on. You had to offer the seller whatever they wanted and then some just to get your offer accepted. But today, the tables have completely turned 180 degrees, and you as a home buyer, you hold all the cards. You make the rules. So I don't know what else you'd want to buy in life that you control all the cards, but to me, that sounds like Christmas. That sounds like I can go out and I can dictate what I want to pay. The seller's willing to pay my closing costs. I can dictate the terms. And you know what? I actually have time to enjoy this process. I was just joking about this with one of my realtor partners the other day, that the last couple of years, there were so many realtors out there that were just so rude about the entire process. And when you even think about some of these new home builders, they didn't care. If you didn't play by their rules, so what? They didn't care. You had to go wait because there were 40 other people that were willing to buy a house today. That just took away from a lot of the compassion and empathy that I feel like most transactions you get to experience, because we all remember what it was like for the first time when we bought our house, or the first client that we helped finance and get their first property. That kind of stuff, to me, it's nostalgic and it's coming back, and you can experience that versus someone telling you, hey, Joe, you need to write an offer today. You've got 3 houses to choose from. We're going to go look at 2 of them. The last one, you're just going to write it sight unseen. But don't worry. There's a way that we can get you out of the deal if you don't like the offer. That's just crazy. And that was the conversations that were going on the last 2 years, simply because that was the environment we were living in. So take advantage of the fact that you can have some patience in the market today. Another big tip: avoid big purchases. You might be wanting to work on your credit to get things up a little more. Make sure that you're not going out and buying anything crazy. There's so many stories that I hear of people that they're wanting to build their credit, or they're not ready to buy right now, and then next thing you know, they're buying a car. That car payment's costing them $400 to $700 a month, and guess what? That just eats away at their buying power, and now they have to rent for another couple of years or several years before they end up paying that car off, and then try the process all over again. So this actually goes back to my point of being disciplined and having a budget. If buying a house is an absolute goal of yours, you have to make sure you stay disciplined. If you absolutely need a car, and I get it, here in Vegas, yes, our public transportation system's not the greatest, so getting around can be a little difficult without a vehicle. If you need it to get to work, you need it to make money, by all means, you got to do what you got to do. But maybe that's when you pick up a side hustle to help offset the cost of the car. But as much as possible, you want to eliminate large purchases. Don't go out and finance an 85-inch screen TV. Don't go finance the car. Don't go finance furniture. These are some of the things you should be paying in cash. Because you can't afford to pay it in cash or buy it outright, you probably can't afford it. Those are some of the simple mistakes a lot of clients make that hold them back. And now that we're heading into the holiday season, this is also gut check time. Because you've got Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. What are you going to do? Are you going to travel? Are you going to go on vacation? Are you going to go crazy and buy your kids tons of presents? Or are you going to stay disciplined for the sake of buying a house in the future? This is the part of the year that a lot of clients, once I start calling them and saying, hey, Kirsten, are you still thinking of buying a house? You're like, I'm going to wait until the new year. Why? Because you probably got a vacation planned. You're probably spending money to go somewhere for Thanksgiving. You're probably buying yourself or maybe your family Christmas presents, and you're probably going out to the club or somewhere for New Year's. And guess what? Come January 1st, you've racked up probably another $5,000 or $10,000 worth of debt. That you could have essentially been disciplined, save that money, and put it towards buying your house. And so many of you might be banking on getting a tax refund to pay off that debt. But again, if you're getting that money, why not save it and put it towards the house? Because the next thing that will happen, it's the vicious cycle. You're going to head right into the spring season. And guess what? You're going to want to probably take a vacation then. Or your kids get out of school for spring break or the summer. And then you're on vacation again. Now you're racking up more money. And then next, a whole year will go by. You haven't saved anything. You're going to sign another lease and spend another $20,000 to $30,000 that's paying someone else's mortgage. So stay disciplined, to the budget, and to the goal. And if you don't know where to start on buying a house, make sure to check the description. There's a link to my first-time home buyer guide that you can download that will literally give you the entire playbook from start to finish on what it takes to buy a house. Now that you got your plan in place and you've been disciplined, you have to look at real estate as a long-term play. So many of you get caught up in, what if my house goes down in value? You know what? It might. But unless you're planning to sell, it doesn't really matter because home values will always come back. You can Google this stuff. Look up real estate values over the last 50 years. There's always maybe a peak. There's maybe a trough. There's peaks and valleys. But guess what? Over time, property values always come back. So if you're thinking about buying, this is one thing you have to look at. You have to zoom out a little bit from what you're currently looking at. Don't get focused so much on today. Think about what is that house going to be worth 3, 5, 10 years from now if you plan on staying there that long, or you turn it into a rental down the road and now you start to build wealth with real estate. All it takes is buying that first house, get your foot in the door. Then you can start to build wealth, build equity, have and enjoy the appreciation of the property. But more than ever, real estate is a long-term play. If you're thinking you're going to buy this house and in 6 months it's going to be worth $100,000, I'm going to tell you right now, that's probably not the case, and now's not the time for you to buy. Or if you're thinking of doing that, you might want to look at flipping houses, but there's other ways that you can make money with real estate. But this video is for all of you first-time home buyers that's going to live in the house. Don't get caught up so much in the micro. Think about the macro and what's that house going to be worth to you and your family down the road. Think about all these other higher cost of living states like California, New York, Connecticut, Illinois. We've had a lot of you relocate here to Las Vegas because the cost of living, and you don't want to pay $1 million for a house or a condo, and you want to come to Vegas because we have no state income tax and you can get more bang for your buck. For all of you that may not have lived in a higher cost of living place like that, think about what home prices were in Los Angeles 50 years ago. Where are they today? Think about what home prices were in Honolulu, Hawaii 30 years ago, and where are they today? It's getting more and more difficult to afford a home. So if you can get into a place today that you can truly afford and it's not stretching your budget, keep in mind, we don't want to stretch your budget and make you house poor. I think you should strongly look at buying. These are some of my top tips to help all of you first-time home buyers in today's market. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.